I'm getting a glare.
I just wish we weren't up here.
We're going live in 5, 4, 3, 2.
I'd like to welcome everybody to this regularly scheduled Oscoda Township Board meeting for September 25th. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any agenda additions or corrections? If not, could I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Bill, I think you missed roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. We get a roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings? Ms. McGuire?
Here.
Mr. Spencer?
Yep.
Mr. Taser?
Present.
Mr. Sutton here. Mr. Wusterbarth?
Present.
Mr. Palmer?
Here. Okay, now our agenda. Are there any additions or corrections? And if not, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I would make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Jeremy Beebe.
We have a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is public comment. You'll have 4 minutes to speak. We ask that you fill out a sheet. Do we have,
Yes, I do.
okay.
John Novak regarding the Drain Commission resolution.
Okay. At the podium, please. If you'd state your name for the record.
John Novak.
At the podium, please. So it'll go on the recording.
Request of the board. I understand they're reviewing the possibility of modifying the drains at Lakewood Shores from Lakewood Road to the lake. The only thing I'm asking the board to do is ensure that an impact study is done on the lake level of Cedar Lake before you install all new drains or different drains. That area is very sensitive to the lake level. And there's been old studies, you can look them up, but a new modified drain system could severely impact the lake. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Do we have another?
Yes. Robert Blair, and this is regarding chief of police hire.
Yes. And again, if you'd state your name, so it'll be on the recording.
My name is Robert Blair. I go by Bob. My name is Robert Blair. I'm here in support of the township hiring Donald Bolin as the Oscoda Township Police Chief. Here's my condensed background. I have 29 years of total experience as a certified police officer in Michigan. I retired from the Michigan State Police in 2021. I worked a few years as a police officer prior to, and I'm currently a Tawas City police officer. It was 2009 that Don Bolin and I began to work together. Don was senior to me by a couple trooper recruit schools. We got to know each other very quickly and became friends. I always respected many things about Don, one of which was that he listened to what others had to say. The senior officers are responsible for what happens on a call, but for example, Don always said that whatever the best idea was, we were going to go with that idea, no matter who was senior. There are months that went by where we didn't work together because Don was selected as an instructor at the State Police Academy. When he was away at the supervisor leadership school, we also parted ways for a short bit, but he was selected for that in preparation of his sergeant promotion. Don got promoted to the position of sergeant within the same post area. We all ran the firearms range together, and he became my squad sergeant or my direct supervisor. Don always had troopers calling him all the time for advice, even if he was not their direct supervisor. I once was asked by a board of state police lieutenants who I would emulate as a supervisor. I said it would be Sergeant Bolin. When asked why, my reason was that no matter what he was going through personally or professionally, had a bad day, had a bad week, whatever, he always did his job to the very best of his ability. Police work is at times very challenging, and I always respected him for that. On many occasions, we were needed for backup in this very area, where we would respond to the Oscoda Township officers to provide assistance for them. And many nights we came up and drank coffee just to simply enjoy camaraderie between agencies. Let me say this, Don does not need this position to make ends meet. He wants this position. He and I have talked about how much he loved having a squad of troopers he could look after. This is really no different. A quality of a good leader is one who leads from the front, one who doesn't expect his officers to do things he wouldn't do or hasn't done himself. During a recent conversation with Don about this potential position, I honestly said, "You might be in for a headache." And he said that there will be challenges for any new leader, but if appointed to this position, we discussed his desire for a high morale and a continuously motivated and effective police department. So I ask you to remember this. There are fuzzy black and white pictures and there are colored high definition pictures. This is an analogy that I have used for years and years to refer to when people think they know something versus what they actually see or actually do know something about, and primarily referred to as police work. Don always said on the way to a call, we will figure it out when we get there. And it has always been figured out. I can assure you that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any others?
Yes. John Richards, also regarding Chief of Police.
Hi, my name is John Richards. I'm an Oscoda Township president. I've been in law enforcement for 28 years, still currently employed with Michigan State Police. I've known Don for 28 years. We started our law enforcement career together at the Tawas Police Authority, where we both were reserve officers. Don moved on to the state police. I stayed at the city police department for several years before joining the Michigan State Police. Michigan State Police has recognized Don and his ability to lead, his integrity. They promoted him to a sergeant, excuse me, in charge of a squad covering 4 different counties. So his squad was responsible for 4 counties every night. I believe Don has good integrity, he has leadership skills. He's the person for the job. I would be proud to have Don as the police chief of the township where I live and reside with my family. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more?
Oh, yes. Jeff Linderman, regarding CLIB Resolution 2023-22.
Good afternoon, everybody. Jeff Linderman, Oscoda resident. My first topic is Cedar Lake Improvement Board update. Speaking as a riparian of Cedar Lake, I have been actively involved with reviewing the actions of the Cedar Lake Improvement Board for many years. Due to the lack of availability for public access to CLIB documents, such as meeting minutes as outlined in the OMA, section 15.269, I conducted a FOIA request with Alcona County, Iosco County, Greenbush Township, and Oscoda Township. Could not get any documents. They were not held in those 4 locations. They're held by the CLIB directly on a personal computer. The CLIB consists of 6 elected governmental officials and 1 riparian representative. Funding for the CLIB is through a SAD of $114,000 per year paid by Cedar Lake riparians. No federal money, no state money, no grants. It is all funded by riparian owners. This group falls under the guidelines of the OMA and FOIA as outlined by the Michigan statute. When I questioned Alcona County and Iosco County regarding their oversight, they informed me in writing they have none over that board. Zero oversight over that board. That board was created by county resolution in 1995 and subsequently updated 4 times, ending in 2007. Due to the lack of transparency in perceived violations, I provided my research and relayed my concerns to Trustee Worsterbarth, who serves on that board. Trustee Worsterbarth acknowledged my concerns and is reviewing them for possible action. Thank you, Mr. Worsterbarth, for listening to me.
You're welcome.
Moving on to the Iosco County Drain Commission resolution before you tonight, 2023-22. My wife Kelly and I have been riparian residents of Cedar Lake since 2016. When the Lakewood Shores POA was developed back in the 70s, subsurface drains were installed by the developer to remove water from the Cedar Swamp to facilitate more construction. Iosco County Drain Commissioner assumed control and maintenance of the system, upgrading it several years ago. Cedar Lake continues to have varying lake level issues due to environmental factors. In 2011, Kaiser and Associates published a study outlining the effects of this drainage district, which is maintained by the Iosco County Drain Commissioner. Why is it important? Cedar Lake is 12 foot higher than Lake Huron. Water flows from Cedar Lake to Lake Huron via that drainage district. That water flows 24/7, 365. We have no control over it. Proposed modifications to this system by the Iosco County Drain Commissioner could result in enhanced flow of water from Cedar Lake to Lake Huron. The AICLA would like to be a part of this process moving forward. I would suggest this resolution be tabled for further review. I sent an email this afternoon with a synopsis of the information I just spoke of. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. You may not have saw it yet. I sent it late in the afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more?
Yes. Lawrence Hazelton regarding the drain project in Lakewood Shores.
Thank you, Lawrence Hazelton, Oscoda residents. Just to follow on Jeff's remarks, just a great concern on my part that substituting a perforated drain for a non-perforated drain in the area in the Lakewood Shores is going to affect the lake levels where I own property. And I just ask that you strongly consider getting a good engineering analysis that shows that changing that drain system is not going to affect the lake levels. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
One more. Kelly Brown regarding financial questions and hiring protocol.
Morning or good evening, everyone. See, I've been working so hard today, I can't even remember what time of day it is. Had a quick question regarding the financials.
Could you state your name, please?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Kelly Brown, Oscoda resident. A couple of questions regarding the financials. Josh, I don't know if this is something you'll be able to speak to today or not, but under unallocated, I noticed from a couple of meetings as well as on this one, we have a lot of the legal bills being put under there. Is there a reason that we have to account for them that way? This particular check run that is dated check run 9/26, we have 2,346. It's amongst two different legal firms that we have listed. And then throughout the other financial pages, we have some additional legal amounts that are listed that come out to a total of $5,529. So I'm not sure how, from a citizen's perspective, we can determine what these things are for. So I'm wondering if you could, during your board comments, explain how they get put under unallocated, and what that means. as far as someone like myself looking at these financials. My second item, and I did send you guys all an email today, this afternoon, with regards to the hiring protocol. I had a couple questions regarding the police chief hiring. Why wasn't the MPulse site used to advertise this position? It seems like that's a pretty standard protocol throughout law enforcement, whether it be detective, police chief, police officer, all of those positions. So that was my first question regarding the protocol. Then I also wanted to ask regarding the interviewing committee. Do we have a standard? I looked under the board protocol manual online. I looked under your subcommittee list. Who interviews for these positions so that the appropriate questions are asked? I'm not sure who on the board would be able to respond to that during board comment, or if it would be the superintendent. But I just like a little background. And that leads me to my final point on the hiring practice is why don't we have a standard operating procedure on hiring? I wish we didn't have to hire. It'd be nice to have longevity. I know how much we enjoy having the same faces and get to know one another. But there really doesn't seem to be a process of the who, the when, why, what questions are answered, how many candidates, how long do we hire for a position. This particular position, the resignation was given on August 28th. And the current applicant that you have in the packet up for discussion and possible action tonight sent in their cover letter on the 29th. Now, obviously, they're local, so they would have gotten notice of it. So I don't know how many people. It would just be nice as a resident to have an idea of what amount of applicants we're receiving. Is there something wrong with our job posting descriptions that we're not receiving more? I know we had the same challenge with regards to the planning and zoning. I did also send you all some information that I found after Googling online that was concerning to me. And I just want to make sure that you, as our elected officials, are making the appropriate decision based on what's best for the citizens. And I'd ask you to keep that in mind tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more?
No.
That's it?
That's the last one.
All right. Thank you. Next is our consent agenda. This is for the approval of minutes for the meeting from September 11th. The payment of bills or finances totaling $298,287.29 for check runs September 25th, September 29th, the tax overpayment, C2R2 payments, and the special assessment payoff. Anyone have any questions or comments on any of these? If none, then I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support?
We have a motion by Mr. Worcesterbarth, support by Mr. Taser. Roll call, please.
Mr. Worcesterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next up is committee reports. I'll start with the airport report. I don't have a lot, although there's a lot going on at the airport. They're doing tremendous things with upgrading. They just put in repaved several of the taxiways out there. It's beautiful what they did out there. There's a lot of asphalt that went on the ground out there, and they are in the process of crack sealing some of the other areas of the base to make all those more usable and user-friendly. They're also looking at Perimeter Road being repaved towards the end of October. We also have Car and Driver coming in. I think early in October, mid-October, sometime in that time frame. They will be doing some high-speed tests of some, from what I understand, some fairly exotic cars that they'll be bringing in. It will be open for the public to be able to come in. I hope we can, I see Mr. Downs is here. I hope we'll be able to, once we know exactly when that is, to get that information out to the public so that the public can come and watch these speed tests. I think that will be, I believe will be very exciting. If they do what I think they're going to do and have a Lamborghini out there to drive down some of that new, I would like to be able to get in that and see what we can get it up to, but I doubt I'll be able to do that. But I think it'd be interesting for our residents to come out and watch these tests. It should be exciting. That's pretty much all my report for now. Like I said, there's a lot of things going on at the airport. It's going to develop into a center of economic development for not only Oscoda Township, but for Oscoda County as a whole. So they are beefing up the airport, improving everything out there, and bringing in new tenants. They're not allowed to sell any property on the old base, but they can only do leases. But they are leasing properties pretty regularly. So we've got new tenants coming in, and they are staying under budget with higher revenues and lower costs, and they're doing a great job out there. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Taser for the Planning Commission.
Good evening. Yes, case 108-2023, the storage unit on US 23. That was discussed, and that case is going to be brought back on October 2nd. It was scheduled for a rescinding of that, and that's going to be rescheduled for the October 2nd Planning Commission meeting. There was a first read for the Corridor Business District amendments, and with definitions and the approval standards was read. This item will go to a public hearing also at the Planning Commission, and the rezoning of the Flight District is scheduled for an update at the October 2nd meeting also. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Next up is ZBA, Mr. Spencer.
Still haven't had a ZBA meeting, so no update there.
Okay. LDFA, Ms. McGuire.
Just a short one. Recently, myself, Brenda, and Jamie from the airport and the assessor met to go over the LDFA parcels to make sure that our capture and everything was up to date for the upcoming tax year. And everything's looking good. We've already updated quite a few things. I've got another email from Jamie with all the new documents. And you already mentioned the perimeter road paving, so that's really the only update I have at this time.
And that's being funded by the LDFA, right?
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Next, Mr. Sutton, the EIC.
We discussed setting up work sessions because we need to review our EIC bylaws and strategic plans for the end of the year. That's what we're working on now, so.
Okay. Thank you. Next, again, Mr. Spencer, the 911.
We haven't had a 911 meeting since the last board meeting. The next one was scheduled for October 11th, but it was rescheduled by the 911 director to, I believe, the 19th. So hopefully we'll have an update for you at our next meeting.
All right, thank you. The HUSRA report, Ms. Klein.
So HUSRA met on September 5th due to the Labor Day holiday. We discussed HUSRA's mission statement and the operating standards, and all agreed to leave these without corrections. There was another discussion regarding the primary main redesignation. Oscoda Township brought forward a motion to have HUSRA draft a resolution to redesignate that, and the motion failed at this time. I don't know why, but we couldn't get it passed, so I will be trying again to get that done. We discussed the Air Force access agreement for monitoring wells on a primary main by the back gate of the old Air Force Base. and that is still in discussion, so.
And just for everybody's information, the primary main that we're trying to get redesignated as a secondary main is so that we can get fire hydrants.
Yes.
Along Lake Street.
Yes.
The current drain, water line that's there is not sufficient.
Yes. The township board actually passed a resolution to ask for that to be redesignated in January of this year. So that shows you how long it's been in discussion. But right now that we currently have no hydrants on Lake Street. And it would be nice to be able to provide that fire protection for the community.
I think that was a recommendation from our fire chief, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. Okay, thank you. Next is the RAB. Mr. Cummings is a representative. He's not here this evening. I believe the next RAB meeting will be November 8th. And more information, I'm saying, Dave is saying yes, I believe that's correct. And I'm sure there'll be more information coming out before that, times and dates and information on the RAB presentation. Next is our engineering, Mr. Freeman.
Good evening. A little bit of progress on several projects this past month. Phase 3 and Phase 5 water main are nearing completion. Phase 3, all of the services have been installed and all of the well abandonments, except for one, have been completed. And cleanup and restoration is essentially done, and we're going through punch list items right now with the residents to make sure everything is acceptable to them. Phase 5, a little bit behind that schedule, but they're finishing up the water services and the well abandonments, and they've been doing their restoration kind of as they've been going along. So we're hoping that by the end of October, those two projects will be complete in the field, and I believe we're sitting at about 90, between the two phases, at about 90% water service connections on those two phases. Phase 6, we took bids on that project out there at Colbath and that area back on August 31st. Schaff and Associates was the low bidder. That bid has been verified, and the recommendation tonight to the Township Board to award that contract to Schaff. We're looking at scheduling a public meeting with the contractor, Rowe, myself, and the residents to come in sometime next week. I believe it's on Wednesday, just to do a public information meeting and try to get a fair amount of the sign-ups for the water services completed at that meeting, so we're not chasing that through the fall and winter. Construction should start up in early October. We'll get a better indication from the contractor at the pre-construction meeting. The township-wide service line project is essentially ready to advertise and bid, but I've been wanting to get a better indication on when because that one's going to be totally dependent on meter pits, which we now have in stock, but we need the meters, and until I get a definite answer on when those meters are going to be arriving, which we heard hopefully in October, I'm going to hold off on advertising that project a little bit until I have a better understanding of that schedule. Sanitary sewer system project, the odor control, that change order has been signed, and RCL has ordered the equipment with his intent of wrapping that project up with that installation by the end of November. The 2024 both CW, SRF, and DWRF RF project plans were tentatively successful. With the SRF, the sewer project, being identified for roughly $15 million worth of funding. Half of that, $7.5 million, is a grant and principal forgiveness. The water, the DWRF water was also approved tentatively at $7 million, with $3.5 million also there for principal forgiveness and grant money. We are meeting with Baker Tilly on a Teams meeting this coming Thursday to see what effect that has on the rates and stuff, which will be the next step that we will go through with Eagle in the whole process as far as getting those projects moving along. Hull Island, we submitted that application back on the 6th of September. Preliminary scores have come in, and they are requesting some supplemental information by Sunday, the 1st. And I'm working with Julia Butch at Huron Pines and the MDNR to get the information that they're looking for in there, and our scores look very favorable at this time. So, and I think we are planning on attending the MTF or MDNR Trust Fund Board meeting in a couple of weeks that's in Lansing that this will be discussed at. Phase 3 trail project, essentially wrapped up. All of the punch list items have been completed. We're waiting for a few signs to be delivered and installed. All of the restoration is complete. The contractor was out there watering the grass today. Everything is looking very good, and we'll be wrapping that project up officially with MDOT and such sometime in October. The Mission Street lining project, we had a pre-construction meeting today, and construction began today out on Mission Street. Contractor anticipates working the rest of this week on getting it TV'd and cleaned, and then getting some of the patchwork completed, and then obviously identifying if there's any other areas of concern. And then they'll be back the week after next to do the longer stretch of slip lining and have that project wrapped up easily by the middle of October, which there was some drainage issues out there last week, so hopefully that'll start taking care of those and eliminate that problem. Continuing to coordinate with F&B operations. Last meeting was the IPP permitting and going through those plans moving forward. Continuing coordination on several other issues as they arise, PFAS and PFAS. Michigan Rural Water is still investigating the system and prioritizing areas for water loss, and reviewing the water system rate structure. As I said, we'll be meeting with Baker Tilly later this week. Contacted Jason Goff at WTA, and they are starting to look at the multi-story facility at the existing township site with the first step of that project, the structural evaluation of the existing building. Other than that, pretty much everything. We're still chasing several funding opportunities for a variety of projects that are coming up. Probably the next biggest one that we're going to be looking at is Safe Routes to School for the state's fiscal year 2024. And I'll be working with Tammy and the committee on that as far as identifying possible projects and the application process. Holiday Inn development site, the design is essentially done for that water main. Roe will be submitting that sometime next week to Eagle for permitting. We have contacted the developer on setting up an escrow account for the cost sharing, and we'll be shooting to have that under construction for that water main and the water main ready for them by early November or mid-November. Other than that, that pretty much.
Okay, and you said on the other phases we're at about 90% commitment on
phase 3. Yeah, I don't have the spreadsheet with me, the exact numbers, but I believe that between phase 3 and phase 5 combined, that we are at or over 90% residents.
And the requirement under the C2R2 grant funding is that we have at least 51%, so we're well within that.
Yeah, there's some confusion there, and I got to go and look at the fine wording of the grant, because our Eagle representative in Lansing said that it needs to be 50% for each phase, which I do not believe is correct. because she was already asking, well, what are our numbers for phase 6? And I said, well, we haven't started tallying those yet, so I gotta work on that and work that language out with her as far as that goes. But yes, I agree with you that I believe it was 51% of the entire C2R2 grant, what that encompassed, so.
So we don't want to lose any of that money?
No, we
is the
won't.
point.
We won't.
And could you go over again, just one more time, the amounts on the CWSRF and DWSRF?
So yes, on the CWSRF, which is the sanitary sewer work plan, we submitted a project plan for a total project budget of just under 15 million. I think it was 14.9 for pump stations, new transmission line, or finishing the pump stations that were identified in the SAW project. New transmission or force mains, one, especially the big one going from pump station 25 out to the lagoons, and then also significant improvements out at the lagoon site, which will take care of any new PFAS coming into the system and capturing it there. So that was, like I said, 14.9 million, and roughly 50% of that is grant principal forgiveness.
Could you explain just quickly to the audience what that means?
So out of the $15 million, $7,500,000 of that budget will be granted to the township at no cost. That'll be, I'll say, free money for the township to take on 50% of that total project scope. The other $7.5 million will be a low interest loan over 30 or 40 years that the township will pay back as part of that, which is townships, municipalities all over the state go through that. I believe the township has, well, we have one, the current sewer project, and then we have two that are coming off the books within the next couple of years, as far as those bond payments. On the water side, like I said, it's $7 million worth of work that we program, and we've got $3.5 million of that being granted with no cost to the township, and the other $3.5 million will be also a low interest loan, and that's why we're working with Baker Tilly, who is a renowned rate analysis company that the township has worked with before, to make sure there's no significant impact to the current rates to the township for moving those projects forward.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Anyone have any other questions for Rick?
What did the DNR want for the whole island purchase? What information?
Well, we took care of it at the last meeting. One was that raising that local match to 26%. So that was one of them. And then they had some clarification on whether or not this area has either locally, the Oscoda Township or Oscoda County, or the Eastern Michigan Community Government Program has a program just that identifies conservation of green space. So we've researched that and got some information both from the Parks and Rec plan here that Oscoda has. Oscoda County just submitted or completed a Parks and Rec plan which identifies preserving natural and green space areas. So we just got to clarify that information, get that into them. And then there was a couple of other areas. It's a gray area that the Osaba River in that area is not considered. It's connected to the Great Lakes, obviously, but they have a definition that we want to get clarification on as far as that being still a natural and scenic river, which will give us some more points in that area. So it's kind of splitting hairs, but we're going to attempt to get as many points as we possibly can. We're sitting at 345 points right now. As a comparison, the Alabaster project that was presented in Julia's presentation, they were awarded their grant and they were in the low 200s. So,
thank you.
Again, no guarantees, but looking good.
And any idea when we'd be hearing on the Sparks grant for the beach park?
Oh, yes, I talked to Samantha Davis, our grant administrator that I'm working with on these other projects, and she said there should be an answer or a posting on the Spark grant shortly after the 1st of October. So, at the beginning of their new fiscal year.
Yes. All right. Thanks, Rick. All right. Next are action items. Ms. Klein?
We have two more
committees.
Oh, I'm sorry. We should put Rick at the end because I'm used to having him
Him at
for the
the end,
final
yeah.
report. Okay, I'm sorry.
At least
Cedar Lake
At
Board.
least we had the utility subcommittee added to this.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
Mr. Worcester.
As far as Cedar Lake Improvement Board, a couple things going on, continuing from last couple, 3 or 4 meetings that I've discussed. First, I want to start with the next meeting is October 13th. Unfortunately, I cannot be there due to a yearly work work conference that's out of state. That includes my wife. So Jamie, I'm asking if you can attend that meeting.
Sure.
It'll be the 13th at 10 a.m. and it's either going to be at the Greenbush Town Hall or it'll be at the Alcona County Commissioners.
Okay. Will you send me the info?
Yeah, that's once they make the decision, but
All right.
I would appreciate that. I attended the AICLA board meeting on Saturday, or the membership meeting, and it was brought up about the concerns with the CLIB, so I addressed the concerns as I have done in the past at this board. I still have 2 items that I need to finish myself with a few reports, both state reports, that I'll be trying to finish up by Friday of this week. And then I'm hoping at the next board meeting, I'll be bringing forward and asking for an authorization or the board to vote to proceed with the public hearing, at least from Oscoda Township, for the dissolution of the CLIB. So I plan to bring that for a board vote at the next meeting in October. I've sent a few communications up and back to the county, as you've seen. It spells out the same concerns that I have: OMA violations, funds that have been spent that have not been authorized in the SAD. Those are the 2 large ones, but it's just an issue for years. There just hasn't been proper oversight of this board. And we'll clearly spell those out, and if the public hearing is approved to go forward, at least in Oscoda Township, it'll give the riparians an opportunity who pay for the management of that lake. It's not public money, it's people that own property, deeded property, riparian property on the lake, and it'll give them the opportunity to understand the issues and also address us with their concerns and how they would like to proceed. So I think it would be good to get all this out in public and we can discuss the resolution. The only thing I can do is pursue it through Oscoda Township. Greenbush would have to follow suit. And per the state statute, the CLIB itself would have to be an affirmative to disband that board. But I'm starting the process based on the things that have been uncovered in the last year. So that's my update on CLIB. Any questions? Utility subcommittee meeting, we met on September 11th at the Township Hall offices. Mr. Palmer, Mr. Taser, Ms. Klein, and Mr. Freeman were in attendance. We have a contract that will be coming due next year with our current service operator, F&V, for our water and sewer services that they provide to the township. We are going through the last RFP, and Ms. Klein and I hope to have a draft to present to the board in the last meeting in October. We're kind of getting ahead of the game here, so we can ask the board for its comments based on the draft that we send to you with a little bit more of an expanded scope to include, let's say, water loss investigation. That's kind of an out-of-scope service in the current contract, and just try to clean up issues that we have with the contract as it's written today. So again, Ms. Klein and I are trying to get the draft ready for the last meeting in October. The contract is actually up, I think, late next September, early October, and with the intent we'd like to get an RFP approved by the board and let's say in the December packet or the 1st of January, so we can have plenty of notice for any and all operators to respond to that RFP. So we're not doing things at the last minute. We discussed a few frozen water meters on Bachman Drive. Mr. Freeman is looking into that. We discussed tip-top screw, wastewater, and briefly discussed the IPP that's considering that, which is the industrial pretreatment program. Discussed the Holiday Inn water main situation, and we discussed a water meter that happened to be installed on the wrong lot for a homeowner. That's the utility subcommittee update.
Okay, thank you. Now we can go to the superintendent's report.
Okay, so the township through the road commission received a TAP grant for roughly $2 million for the Oscoda Exploration Trail project. This grant requires an 80-20 split, with 20% being a local match, which has been met. Your packet contains an invoice from the road commission in the amount of $45,130.33. So we'll have two actions on this invoice. Number one, to approve the payment of $45,130.33 towards the Oscoda Exploration Trail to be paid to the Oscoda County Road Commission from Fund 101-751-880.572. And action number two, to approve appropriations to Fund 101-751-880.572 in the amount of $45,130.33. Side note, the township has just applied for our first reimbursement in the amount of $129,115.79, which we should be receiving soon.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments? This is part of the Oscoda Exploration Trail, which we received a TAP grant, and that TAP grant is handled by the Oscoda County Road Commission, so that's why we have to pay them our portion of that match. We did receive an DNR MNRTF grant for $300,000, which covers a good portion of these amounts that we're having to pay to match the Road Commission. So if there's no other questions, I would make a motion to approve paying Oscoda County Road Commission invoice in the amount of $45,130.33 toward the IET to be paid from Fund 101-751-880-572.
Support, Sutton.
We have a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Sutton. Roll call, please.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Wurstabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Second part of that is the appropriation. So I would move to make an appropriation to Fund 101-751-880.572 in the amount of $45,130.
Support.
33 cents, Bill.
They're not asking for the 33 cents.
They're not?
No, I think we've got that covered. Ms. Klein's donating 33 cents.
Oh, well.
We have a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Wurstabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next, we have a series of roll invoices.
Okay, your packet contains the following listed invoices from Row Engineering for services rendered. These invoices require Township Board approval.
The first invoice is 110055 for as-needed services.
Make a motion to pay invoice $110,055 for as-needed services in the amount of $1,666 even from account 101-299-821.000.
Support, Sutton.
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
I would make another motion to approve payment of invoice $110,056 for wastewater pump station improvements in the amount of $340 to be paid from CWSRF after reimbursement is requested and made available.
I'll support that motion.
Thank you.
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton. Roll call, please.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is invoice 110059.
I'll make a motion to approve payment of invoice number $110,059 for water system improvements in the amount of $34,995 even to be paid from C2R2 after reimbursement has been requested and made available.
Support, Sutton.
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton. Roll call, please.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next, invoice 110065.
I'll make a motion to approve invoice number $110,065 for Oscoda Township River Road Water Main Design in the amount of $4,345 even to be paid from account 101-000-528.001.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Worcester. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Okay, that takes care of road for this month. Next is the Phase 3 water main pay request.
Right, your packet contains the fifth pay request in the Phase 3 water main project in the amount of $129,492, leaving a total of $96,412.60 remaining on this project. I would ask that the board consider approving the fifth pay request from Caterman Trucking Incorporated in the amount of $129,492 C2R2 funds after reimbursement is requested and deposited into the township's account.
Any questions, concerns? Do I have a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the fourth pay request from Caterman Trucking Incorporated in the amount of $129,492 to be paid from C2R2 funds after reimbursement is requested and deposited into the township's account.
I'll support that if you change it to the fifth pay request.
Yeah, I believe.
Oh, yeah, fifth pay request. What did I say?
You always look, you think you're
Oh,
looking at it wrong.
The next one.
Yep, I will support that.
Thank you.
We have a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Mr. Spencer. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is Phase 5 pay request.
Right, your packet contains the seventh pay request from Phase 5 water main project in the amount of $169,188.21, leaving a total of $425,388.23 remaining in this project. I would ask that the board consider approving the seventh pay request from Elmer's Crane and Dozer Incorporated in the amount of $169,188.21 to be paid from C2R2 funds after reimbursement is requested and deposited into the township's account.
Any questions? Do I have a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the fourth pay request from, oh, my God, the seventh. From Elmer's Crane and Dozer Incorporated in the amount of $169,188.21 to be paid from C2R2 funds after reimbursement is requested and deposited into the township's account.
Support. Worcester.
We have a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Mr. Worcester. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. I would just say that these projects are getting finished up, and these are some of the last payments that we're making. So we're making good progress on these things. Next up is the resolutions and ordinances. First is the corridor business.
It's postponed.
I believe we're
I left it
make a
on the
motion
agenda.
to, I would make a motion to postpone that.
Support?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Wurstabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is resolution 2023-22, relating to the Iosco County Drain Commission special assessment, and I believe our drain commissioner is in attendance. Yes, if you'd like to come up and to the podium and
I am Fred Schreier, Hazelton County Drain Commissioner. Have been for approximately 4 years. When Gary Adams retired, or basically called it quits, they appointed me. So there's a lot of concern about the drainage from Cedar Lake, which we all know about. So what we have is we have 1,800 feet of underground infrastructure that was put in 1969 to 1971 through a cedar swamp. It's completely collapsed, and we have 4 residences, 2 of them with their crawl spaces completely submerged in water. And I had to go to the County Board of Commissioners and borrow all of next year's assessment for Lakewood Shores to fix this. So by law, I have to ask for your blessing to exceed the $5,000 per mile that I'm allowed to do for maintenance as it is. I hired Spicer because we are trying to, eventually Oscoda Township is going to have to petition the County Drain Commission to redo all the infrastructure. There's over 13 miles and it's collapsing as we speak. Since this happened, I've had 2 more collapses on Christopher alone. So the first phase is to get this project done with, so these people can move back into their homes because they're staying in motels right now. And then the second phase would be for Oscoda Township to petition the Drain Commission to do a full-blown project, redoing all the infrastructure in all of Lakewood Shores and actually trying to design it so that it flows back into Cedar Lake instead of underneath US 23, because when it goes under 23, it becomes MDOT's and not the Drain Commissioners. So I can't keep the ends open because it's not my jurisdiction. So that's basically why I'm here tonight. Like I say, this was put in 1969 and 1971. And all of Lakewood Shores has been underassessed for since 1994, when Kevin Shabella actually had the Board of Commissioners turn it into a drain. Before that, it was Lakewood Shores' problem. It wasn't the county's problem. So, but they've only assessed $25,000 per year, and it should have been assessed $65,000 per year since 1994. So there's no way that anybody could Gary Adams put $25,000 a year into patches and sucking out manholes, but everything is junk. Just basically telling you the truth, is junk. And it's a big problem, and it's going to be a huge problem if we don't take care of the whole thing. And this could be a win-win for Lakewood Shores and Cedar Lake. If we can divert all the water back into Cedar Lake, they're going to be tickled to death, and so am I, because 33% of their lake's going through this drain system.
And isn't it under your jurisdiction to maintain that level of Cedar Lake?
It is,
Yeah.
within
a range.
Yeah, court ordered and seasonal. It's not seasonal.
But the court ordered isn't a range.
There's no possible way to maintain Cedar Lake right now, even with the, if they did the augmentation pumps, what we would put in a day wouldn't account for, it loses like 1.6 million gallons a day to evaporation in Cedar Lake. And them pumps, I believe, are only gonna bring in 650,000 gallons a day at a cost of $300,000 a year to maintain. That's just not very common sense. We've got to figure out a different solution. Lakewood Shores should have never been built, and it couldn't be built today where it's at in a cedar swamp, that's for sure. So I ask for you to sign this so we can get, I have a contractor ready to start tomorrow morning. It's gonna take them about 2 weeks to get these people dried out and back into their houses. But it's totally up to you.
Is this going to affect the level of the lake?
What's that?
Well, one of the concerns of the citizens was the level of the lake.
Okay, yeah, but this is not, this is already there, this has already been there, this is not.
But if it's collapsed and the water's not flowing through it and you fix that,
It's flooding the whole, all of Sherwood, Pine Tree. The water's still there. It's still coming from Cedar Lake. This isn't stopping it.
right?
Okay, it's not stopping it at all. You're not gonna stop it because it's seeping through the sand, through the cedar swamp, into the drain pipe.
So if we fix it, is it going to change the level of the lake?
No, not at all.
Good.
Not at all.
I think that was one of the primary concerns.
No different than what it was last year.
Fred, I don't think you can state that effectively, for sure.
What's that?
I don't think you can state that effectively, for sure. I've got one comment on a comment you made about the court-ordered range. It's not a range, it's a court-ordered level.
Correct.
And the county, based on the last, state Supreme Court, and I think it's Higgins Lake, is now requiring the government entity to maintain those lakes at those court-ordered level. It's not a range.
Correct.
So I'm glad you agree with that.
Okay, because most of them do have a seasonal range, but this one does not.
This one does not. It's a court-ordered set range. When we did the joint county SAD district for the new spillway, basically. I don't want to call it a dam because it's not really a dam.
Okay.
But I don't think you can effectively say anything you touch there is going to not affect the lake or affect the lake. I don't think we have enough information. I know you mentioned an augmentation study, but I don't believe that's a full engineering study that we did. It was a test that the CLIB did 7-8 years ago in their study. We haven't done an engineering hydrology study on this lake effectively that shows us how much water loss is going through those drains in Cedar Lake. And it is a big concern because this lake only gets water from rainfall and wetlands.
Right.
So I got two issues. One, I think we need more information, and I'm sorry. I know I've heard we got homeowners that are displaced at this point in time, but we don't have enough information that shows what's going to happen to the lake, and I don't have enough information on your costs. You're putting out 5,000 miles, and then you state there's 13 miles of possible drains. I understand.
That's if you petition me. That is not for this emergency repair.
Okay, but again, if we get into a petition, it's going to go into a new SAD district, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Right, which would be a full engineering study. So I would say before we touch anything, I would like to see more information on what these drains are doing, and if we touch them, what are they going to do? Are they going to contribute more, or are they going to contribute less? That's just where I'm at.
So you're gonna let these people live in a motel? Are you gonna pay their bills? Or what if they let their houses go back?
I'm just making
This isn't, if this would have been maintained and assessed correctly, this would have been fixed, okay?
So why wasn't it done 20 years ago?
You need to ask Calvin Chabella, you need to ask Gary
Oh,
Adams.
in the county.
Both of these
In the county.
drain commissioners lived in Lakewood Shores. That amazes me, okay? And so here it is in my lap, and I'm not happy with people not living in their houses because somebody didn't maintain a drain project before I was in office. So let me do my job, get this part done. The next part is up to you guys. If you don't want to petition it, you don't have to. But if we petition it, then we're going to get a complete study of what we can and can't do by an engineer. But I have $10,000 in my general fund. That won't pay for 1 day of engineering.
I'm sorry, how much did you say you have?
What's that?
How much money did you say you have in the fund for the drain maintenance?
So in the general fund, I have 10,000. But in Lakewood Shores right now, I have already borrowed 64,000 from the delinquent tax fund which I could do because of the emergency relief law. And then the rest was what was already in Lakewood Shores account. So this isn't costing anybody a penny, okay? Nothing more than what you're paying already. It's only gonna cost you more if you petition me to redo the whole infrastructure.
It's going to cost the people that are being special assessed.
Correct, and the township and the county, because it's all divided up.
Can you tell me what's in the fund? I know that we have done drain maintenance special assessments is an ongoing special assessment.
Yep.
That one can't be paid off. So we're collecting, like you said, $25,000 a year.
Yep.
So are you saying you spend that much money every single year?
No, that's what I'm saying right now is we have, we have 79,000 from your special assessment plus the 64,000 that we borrowed from the county. This project's gonna cost $140,000 to do 1,800 feet.
So the ongoing special assessment that they've done for over 25 years, there's only $79,000 in that account.
Yeah, so you can only keep $65,000 a year in the account. 2 years ago, I spent $25,000 cleaning the sand out of the manholes. Just like that, it was gone. And we had to put all of it in dumpsters and plastic bags so it could be tested for PFAS. And then it was shipped to Pinconning, which it all came back negative, so.
And
So
how
yeah,
long have
there's
we-
no money, because everything, like I say, the infrastructure's so old, it's collapsing quicker than we can do anything. But we do need to do a full-blown petition if we're going to make this work for Cedar Lake. Because there's no way, I can't take that in. So, like, next year, what we get in winter tax this winter, it's already got, that's gonna go back to the delinquent fund. I can't do anything next year at all in Lakewood Shores. I have no money. It's in that rough a shape.
So how long has the houses been, like, have they had issues before, or all of a sudden they're just full of water?
So, last year, the block above collapsed and flooded the guy to the north. So we hired John Henry, and he fixed that, whatever that was, 500 feet, and brought it down to this new manhole. So, well, not the old manhole. Anyway, from all the flow into that, and because everything's plugged, the whole thing just rotted. It's corrugated pipe. It's not plastic. It's metal, and it's gone. It's 53 years old.
This was installed when the development was done?
Yeah, when they built the subdivision, they installed all this, so.
So if I understand what you're proposing, is this resolution, if we pass that tonight, would give you permission to fix the smaller problem that these people are facing, that their houses are flooded?
Correct,
And you would get that corrected right away?
Yep, it's 1,800 feet, it's down Sherwood, so down to Pine Tree.
And then subsequently, we can petition you to do a fuller study on the entire system to address some of the residents on Cedar Lake.
Correct.
Their concerns about retaining the
Yep.
water, and have that engineered so the water flows back to Cedar Lake
Back
and
to
not
Cedar
out
Lake.
to 23.
Yep, and not to Lake Huron. And then everybody is gonna be a lot happier, for sure. And you're gonna have to do something. Even if I'm gone, it's not gonna change. It's collapsing left and right, so.
Well, thanks for coming here tonight and answering. Anybody else have any other questions or comments?
So you can't tell us, though, if you open that up, that it'll lower that lake level any more than it presently is doing?
The water's still seeping all the way to that already. Not
At the
all-
same rate, though? Will it go at a faster rate if you open that up?
No, because if you go to the manhole before, it's just blowing through there, but it's bubbling back up out of the ground because it can't get, through its channel.
How much above the $5,000 a mile do you need to go?
What's that?
It says right here, I mean, it doesn't really, it says that
It
you're.
doesn't give a total cost.
You're allotted $5,000 per mile or a fraction thereof, but you're asking to exceed that costs, or those costs, by how much? I mean, if you're asking us to provide you, to say, yes, you can go over $5,000, well, how much, how far over?
I can go whatever it takes to do it. That's the thing. So you're only.
So if it costs you $1 million for a mile, then you're gonna spend it, and we're just gonna be standing here going, oh!
We already have the money. It's not, so the whole thing is, we had 3 bids, okay? We took the lowest bid. The highest bid was $145,000, the lowest bid was Schaff at $111,000. Then we hired Spicer Engineering to make sure that if you did petition me, and we did a future plan, and we could push the water back to Cedar Lake, that we're gonna set this pipe at the right level so that we're just not throwing your money away. Okay, so whatever plan we do down the future, if we go to Cedar Lake or if we go back out to Lake Huron, this pipe is gonna adapt into it. So that was another $15,000. Then they're gonna charge me, I think, $2,000 a day. It's another $8,000 to make sure the pipe's installed correctly so that everything will work in the future. So.
Jamie?
I have another question. This is the first time in the sport packet I've been hearing anything about this. Have you had email correspondence with anybody else, with the town, with Tammy or our engineer? I mean, or this is just something you are just now coming to us with?
And the only reason it's coming to you is because the engineer told me last week that because it exceeds the $5,000, I had to come in front of the board. Otherwise, I could have just done it. I wouldn't need your permission.
And you have sufficient money to do it right now, this temporary.
There's no total cost.
What's that?
You have sufficient money right now to do what you're
I
planning.
do. I have everything in place. I have a contractor in place. I have a pipe ready to go.
How long have these residents been flooded out?
What's that?
How long have these residents been flooded out of their homes?
I'm sorry. I can't hear.
How long have these residents been flooded out of their homes?
Over 3 months.
So you've known about this issue for 3 months, and now we're just finding out right now?
That's because the engineer just brought it to my attention last week.
Just brought the problem to your attention?
Brought that I have to go in front of the board.
Right, but you're talking about doing a special assessment here so that we can fix it in the future, and you haven't, and you're dropping a bombshell on us right in the middle of a meeting here. I mean, nobody knew about this before now, and we're getting blindsided with you want us to spend an unknown amount of money to fix something, and I'm not saying that we're not going to do it. I'm saying that why weren't you communicating this with us 3 months ago when the first resident said, hey, I can't live in my house? Why didn't you notify our township, hey, there's an issue here, we might need to do a special assessment so that we could start planning for this instead of, oh, hey, by the way.
So, when this happened, the first thing I have to do is figure out how to fix it.
Fair.
Okay, fair enough. I didn't know that I had to come in front of the board.
I appreciate that. I'm asking for communication in general, not because you had to, because you should have.
So, I had to figure out what it's gonna cost first.
I appreciate
Had to
that.
find the
And you
funding.
still don't know.
I do know. I know what it's gonna cost just to fix this emergency repair, okay?
Uh-huh.
The rest I do not. That's up to the board. And that would have to, that's a completely different thing. That's not what we're doing tonight. Tonight, we're just trying to get this fixed so that people can move back in their homes. The next phase, I will go through the whole system with all of you, the petition process. So, because I don't want to blindside you. And then you can decide if you want to do it or not,
Fair enough.
okay?
I appreciate that.
All right.
Just be nice, for a little bit of a heads up next time in the future.
If I would have known I would have been here 3 months ago, trust me.
I bet, I know.
Can I clarify one thing, and that is that if when your bids had come in, the cost would have been under the $5,000, you wouldn't be here tonight, right?
No, I would not.
Okay. It's because it's slightly
It
over the
exceeds- because it
$5,000
exceeds,
limit.
yes.
We have to
Yeah, and that's
provide
what the
this
engineer
resolution.
forgot to, and just told me last week, and that's why I ran the resolution up to you that day that we got it, so.
Who pays for that over? This resolution is for, who's actually paying the over the 5,000?
So it's coming out of the maintenance fund that you already have, okay?
So the money's already there.
The money's already there. Yep, this isn't gonna cost this township 1 penny. It will only cost you is if you petition me to do a full-blown project. Otherwise, it's gonna remain the same, and I'm gonna try and fix what I can fix every year. until I can't fix it.
Well, I would request in the future that if you see that coming, you should let us know a little bit sooner so that we can make plans, so it's not a last minute.
And that's why I'm telling you, and that's why I'm here tonight, the whole thing is collapsing.
Yeah, I mean, we're standing here talking about, oh, it collapsed, it was built, 50 years ago, and it's completely destroyed.
So why didn't the other two previous guys take care of it? That lived
Well,
there.
we can point fingers at them, and we should,
Right,
but
I'm
they're not here anymore, we are.
I'm here, that's right.
And so in the future, if you see problems like this, or just a general communication to the township superintendent, just saying, hey, this is what we're doing in your township, that's all. So that she can make the board aware, so that we're not hit with this. I apologize for coming at you a little bit here,
No, and that's
but I'm
fine,
slightly
that's fine.
perturbed.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
So-
it sounds to me like, based on what the people have been here, the residents that are here tonight, this evening that have spoken about the lake level, it's fairly important that we take a long, hard look at this future project to maintain this drain and try and get it engineered so that the water flows back into Cedar Lake. So it seems to me that would be something that we'll need to look at here very, very soon to make that happen.
Yeah, because we don't have no more time, you know what I'm saying? So we need to, did we bring a petition for him tonight? So I'll give that to you and you guys can read it. It's not, for your next meeting, but that's what tells you how to start the petition to redo the whole thing. Because you have to start it before I can do anything. All I can do is maintenance.
So you believe the maintenance on this one little section is going to be how much?
It's gonna be $142,000 for 1,800 feet.
Of which you have?
You got 13 miles. You're looking at probably $10 million.
For this, fix it right now.
This fix right now.
Is 140,000.
140,000.
But you only have 74,000 in the account?
And you have,
You only have 74,000 in the fund?
And I borrowed 64,000 from the county tax fund, delinquent tax fund, which the board's already gave me approval to use it to fix this.
So that covers the whole amount?
So you're looking at
Right.
for an additional 50K-ish?
No.
No, they have it all.
They have what they need.
They have
Just
it
don't
to
have
pay
the
it.
authorization to spend it unless.
They just need our approval because it's over
Okay.
$5,000.
Yes.
I'll state again, my concern is if lowering that lake level, like everybody's been saying,
And I don't know how it can because it's already pushed the water to that point away from the lake. So it's not gonna disturb that at all. That's another reason you need to petition this so we can figure out how to push all this water back.
Personally, I
It
don't
sounds
like
like you have a plan, and that's good.
I do have a plan.
I just wish we would have gotten the plan,
I've
a year
been
after you
enough Cedar
started.
Lake meetings that I'm like, we're gonna do something here and fix this because this is ridiculous. So.
All right.
Well, I think we have to give them permission. I would make a motion that we approve the special assessment under resolution number 2023-22.
It's not a special assessment.
It says special assessment. Resolution number 2023-22, Oscoda County Drain Commission Special Assessment.
Okay.
Just this, to prove the document, right, that we can, so give him the permission that he needs to fix this problem.
Correct.
And then we will be looking forward to communicating with you on a regular basis to fix it completely, permanently, forever. Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. I would support that. Motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call, please.
Okay, we have some discussion on that?
Oh.
I'd like to have some discussion. I don't like the way this resolution is written because it's kind of an open-ended deal, and I don't know where that can go with government. Typically, that's not a good thing. So if this is a one-off, one fix for that specific area, I'd like to see that spelled out for those costs and clearly where the money is coming from, so it's not affecting anything in our budget at this point in time. And along with that, I'd like the county and the drain commissioner to come back with us with an assurance somehow through a professional engineer that this work is not going to affect the lake level in any way. That's just me.
Well, we have a motion and support. Roll call, please.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Worcester?
No.
Ms. McGuire?
It's staying the way it is, the motion.
Well, we've already started voting on it. We have to vote on this one, and then we can make another one if it fails.
No.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
No.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes. Motion failed
Josh,
to
did you
split.
vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion failed?
Motion failed, yeah.
Okay. Make a new motion.
So, does anybody have a new motion to make regarding this?
My motion would be that the drain commissioner and the county come back to us with a new resolution that specifically outlines the cost for this particular 1,800-foot repair, as well as a investigation by a professional engineer as to the effect of lake level of Cedar Lake.
Yes.
I have all that documentation in my office.
That's my motion, Fred.
Do I have support for that?
I'll support it. So we're just rewriting the, didn't have a definition in the resolution, correct?
This cost is open-ended to me. It's just,
Okay.
I like specifics, especially when it comes to resolutions.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Worcester, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes. Motion passed. So as quickly as you can get us that information, we will rewrite the resolution, or you can rewrite the resolution, and we will, perhaps we can call a special meeting or something to approve
Okay.
that.
All right, because I have a contract that's supposed to start tomorrow morning, so.
I would like to get these people back in their homes as soon as possible. That's,
Yeah, special meeting.
I don't get a copy of everything from you, so we can take it back to our office.
Yes.
thank you.
That was a hard one for me. That one was especially hard.
Next is the Police Department and Township Hall server purchase request update. I believe
So,
Mr. Spencer has
Mr. Cummings and I spoke with our current contracted IT company, and first we asked about what the deal is with the date that was on the original quote, and they said that they had generated that quote back then, but they had just sent it to Tammy recently, and since their quotes are good for an X amount of time, that was why there was a date discrepancy. After looking at the quote that they did send us, we found it lacking. It was 2 servers, and they weren't really powerful enough and didn't have enough storage, in the opinion of Mr. Cummings and I. So we went back and we just had a discussion with their quotation team, and when they came back to us with this server that is listed in the packet here for $37,502.43. This one is way more powerful, it has way more storage, and just to answer some of the other questions that the citizens had, the server itself is not dying, it's out of storage. So when it hits a specific mark, it starts to send error messages because there's not enough storage left for the computer or for the server to continue running in an efficient manner. That's why I voted to postpone it and have the discussion with VC3. Now that we've had that discussion, we have the server quote that Mr. Cummings and I both have looked over, and we both think that it's going to do wonderful things for the township. It's going to provide lots of storage and a built-in capacity so that it'll be easily accessible by the server. It's got plenty of processor power and RAM, and I would recommend that we go ahead and purchase this guy and get it installed. On a side note, there was some questions about the HVAC, or the heating and cooling in the area that they're going to be installing the server in the rack upstairs above the police station. There is, currently, they've rerouted a couple of HVAC tubes, if you will, to route some coolant, or some cool air up into that area. If, after speaking with the DPW, we've decided that the room is big enough to go ahead and throw the server up there and monitor it and see what happens. There might be 2 or 3 days on a hot summer day that it might get too hot up there, and we will monitor it on those days. There was a quick quote made by Lamrock Heating and Cooling for a mini split. It was not an actual official quote, it was just a ballpark, which would be well within our means if it comes to that we need to put some cooling up there. But most of the time it's going to be cool enough up there because it's wintertime in Michigan. So I would make a motion that we accept quote number VC3Q27862 in the amount of $37,502.43.
Support. Is that you I heard over there?
Yeah,
Okay.
you or me, whatever.
Was there any other discussion? Anyone have any questions? Jeremy, for this?
I'd just like to thank Mr. Spencer and Mr. Cummings for hopping on this with Ms. Klein.
Yes.
Quite welcome. Happy to serve.
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Worcesterbart?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the Phase 6 Water System Improvement Recommendation. Do you want to give us a highlight on this, or want me to just read this? Oh, it's the, for the Phase 6 Water System Improvement?
In your packet, as I mentioned earlier in my report, we took bids on August 31st, and the as-read, verified, low bidder, and recommendation to award a contract to Schaff and Associates Construction in the bid amount of $1,608,531. They were roughly $200,000 below the next closest bid. So we did have Rowe talk to them about it to make sure that they were committed to this number. They were able to come in at this number because they have their own boring equipment for the water services, so that was the reason that they could come down this low. We also checked several references as far as their past work and the superintendent that they'll have on site, and all came back without any issues. So, as I said, Rowe is recommending that the board award the Phase 6 water main project to Schaff and Associates Construction in the amount of $1,608,531.
And I notice that all the bids were under the engineering estimate.
Yes.
So we come in under bid
Yes.
on all these.
Yes.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Do I have a motion? I'll make a motion to award the Phase 6 water main project to Schaff and Associates in the amount of $1,608,531.
Support.
I have a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Taser. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Worcesterbart?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the police chief hire request. Mr. Don Bolin.
So in your packet is a letter of recommendation from our fire chief, Alan McGregor, and Mr. Boland's resume and application. I believe that he would be an excellent addition to the township and a great leader and mentor for our officers. I think that Mr. McGregor's recommendation speaks volumes. His other people that had come and talked on his behalf. I asked him to be here tonight if you guys had questions for him. because it is kind of hard to just hire somebody without even ever talking to them. But I believe if you have any questions, that you'd be satisfied with his responses. I think the board should consider hiring him contingent on a successful negotiation with the negotiation company.
Anyone have questions for Mr. Boland? Would you like to have him come up and ask some questions?
Sure, why not?
Okay, Mr. Boland?
Came all the way down.
My name is Don Boland, retired sergeant from the Michigan State Police, 25 years with the state police. Does anybody have any questions?
One of your associates mentioned that you don't need this for monetary purposes, so why do you want it?
I think I can do a great job leading this department. I work this area, I know the officers are great, and with some good leadership, we can make a great department up here where more people want to come work. My goal is to set a chain of command, look at the policies, see if they need to be rewritten or updated. And my biggest goal is to avoid liability with the department.
Avoid what, I'm sorry?
Liability.
Excellent.
And I'm assuming you said you're familiar with most of our officers?
Yes, I am.
You're with our department already?
Yes. There's some new ones I haven't met yet. They joined the department after I retired, so I haven't met them yet.
So did you heard about the posting and just thought, you know what, I really want to be the chief of Oscoda Township Police Department?
Well, when I retired, I thought I wanted to be done with law enforcement, but after retiring, I didn't.
Fair enough.
So I thought this would be a great opportunity.
Well, we've heard lots of good things about you. Do you have anything that you'd like to add?
I'm committed, very dedicated to my job, so if I'm chosen to be the chief, I won't let you down.
How long were you assigned to this area when you were state police?
I transferred back in 2009.
So you're extremely familiar with the entire area?
Yes, I was born and raised in Tawas, so I know the area. I know the work of Oscoda Township, what your officers deal with. So I know it's not an easy task for them, which my job is, if I'm chosen as the chief, to make it easier for them, or at least give them the knowledge and the equipment they need to do the job.
Well, I can tell by the quality of the people here talking for you today that you're well liked and your abilities are well known. I respect our fire chief also for writing such a good recommendation for you, and the two officers that recommended you here today. So that carries a lot with me when people that you serve with can make recommendations like that. So
yes.
I got a couple questions.
Sure. Go ahead.
Under your supervisory role that you've had, can you describe to me a very difficult situation that you were in? You don't have to be specific, obviously. Most difficult position that you were in, and how you handled that.
Most difficult decision. Well, there's several ones that come to mind. No decision's easy on the road when you're dealing with officers that are doing their job. I can't say that anything was difficult where I couldn't handle it. I've never had that issue come up. I can't come up with that good.
Okay.
Without, it's just the job as a supervisor. You're dealing with that stuff every day. was one harder than the other? No, it's just, it comes to you, you deal with it, and you move on.
Maybe to clarify, has there ever been have you ever been in a position that was difficult because you made a choice that you thought was right at the time that may have not, that you had to rescind?
No, I've never had that issue. And, my supervisors always told me that I've always made the right decision.
Lucky you.
No, I knew there was a chance, but.
Fair enough.
Go ahead.
Do you have anything else?
Nope, go ahead.
Anybody else? Questions? Mr. Bolton? I would just like to mention one thing I see was on your application. You had an incident in 89th District Court, Sheboygan, under conservation. I looked into this a little bit. It's been expunged from your record. Actually, you really didn't need to include this on your application because when we would do our background search, which we'll have to do, this wouldn't come up. I'm just wondering why you chose to include this in your application.
I don't want any secrets. I don't want to hide anything from you.
Okay. I think that speaks a lot because, like I said, you wouldn't have needed to include this because we never would have found it. It wouldn't have come up.
I know that.
In a report. I don't have any other questions. I appreciate you applying and coming here tonight and speaking to us. So, thank you.
Bill, I just want to piggyback on what you brought up. I want to mention that I did have several residents reach out to me in regards to that, and I went to Tammy, asked questions, spoke with you guys this morning about it, and just want to, let everybody know that we have spoke about it, and I appreciate the fact that you put that on there as well.
And this was, I believe, 14 years ago?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had several people asking me questions, and just so the public is aware, Tammy, if you don't mind, I'm just going to repeat some of the questions that I asked this morning, just as far as like the advertising for the position of the places that we did advertise, because I think there was a lot of misinformation floating around, possibly.
Okay, you want to know the places we advertise?
Yeah,
Okay.
and where
So
came
we
up with them.
advertise on the Township website, ZipRecruiter, and Indeed. I did not post on MCOs because I am not allowed to post on MCOs. So I don't have access.
Did you have anything else, Jamie?
Nope.
Anybody else have any comments, questions? Well, with that, I would move to approve Donald Boland as Oscoda Township Police Chief, pending background checks and what other tests are required, with the salary to be negotiated by the negotiating committee.
I'll support that.
That's the same negotiating committee we use for everybody, right? Correct?
No, that was, I assumed we would use the negotiating committee that negotiated my wages.
Okay.
And my contract.
Which would be Mr. Palmer, Mr. Cummings, myself, and yourself, because it's not your contract
yes.
that we're in.
Yes. So we have a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Westerbarth. Roll call, please.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurstabar?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes. Motion passed. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Look forward to having you with us. Next up is the fire department drug policy and alcohol.
Okay, so in your packet, you have a drug and alcohol policy for the fire department, and it is being provided to you from Labor Council for your approval. This will update the outdated version, I believe. The current version is 2005, and will satisfy insurance requirements. And this has also been read through and approved by the fire chief. This needs township board approval.
Any questions, comments?
Good to me.
Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the fire department drug and alcohol policy as presented.
Support, Spencer.
Have a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Mr. Spencer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the memo request from the clerk for a visa for the fire department. Mr.
Yeah,
Sutton,
and
you
that
want-
was just, I had talked with the fire chief, Tanny, his admin, and they've been purchasing things. And the issue we have, like we do with other ones, like the police department, when they purchase stuff, they can use their tax exempt. But we've been doing reimbursements for the fire department, but they've been buying the stuff with tax, so when we do reimbursement, they're eating the tax, and their request was to have a Visa card so they could do purchases with that would be exempt. Because they're different than like Osama hardware, like they don't want to go to the hardware, they buy different stuff than any of our other departments, you know what I mean? So,
But they can charge it there.
yeah,
Correct, so they don't need a visa for that. Correct.
yeah, they're looking like their uniform, stuff like that. They're
So
ordering
are we
for
going
that.
to put it into the chief's name, correct? We're only issuing one
Right,
for, in the chief's name?
yes.
Okay.
And how much would that?
Yeah. What, are you
What's
talking the
what's
limit?
limit on?
What's the low limit?
Isn't that one or two?
I mean, we don't,
They
yeah.
don't need a lot, it's just to make sure when they order
Well, we need to have one
a
that's
pair
got
of
a,
jeans or
Right.
anything for those guys or any of their gear, they don't have to pay tax on it.
So do you have a recommendation for a limit on this when we have a motion to approve it?
But would you be fine with 1,000? I think that would cover.
You think that's enough?
How much?
More
I'm
than
just, he
1,000?
orders maybe
Oh.
500 to 600 at a time when they're ordering, so.
I would say at least 3.
3?
Oh.
That's my suggestion anyways.
what are the other cards?
Anywhere from
What's the limit on the other
5
cards?
to 10.
Do you know?
The police department currently has two, one's 1,500 and is the other one 1,500 or 1,000? I can't remember.
I thought they were higher than that now. I thought we raised those the last time.
Yeah,
that-
when we just.
Well, I think, so it's 3,000 total, and I believe the police department has two,
2 cards.
in
correct.
case it's split to 1,500 apiece. So there's a 3,000, I believe, is the parks 3,000? I think they're all 3,000.
So that would-
Okay, so that's right in line. All right.
Because any major purchases that they make at the fire department, they come to us for approval.
Anyways.
Anyway.
Yeah,
And then that's purchased outside
Right.
of the visa system.
yes, correct.
All right. Is there a motion? I will make a motion to approve the request of the township clerk to issue a visa to the fire chief for the fire department expenses in the amount of, the limit of $3,000.
Support, Sutton?
We have a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Sutton. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes?
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes,
Mr. Palmer?
Yes. Motion passed.
just so the board knows that I'll have to wait for the approved minutes for this meeting till I can submit them to the visa company to get the card for the minutes.
They require a copy of our minutes
Yeah.
for that? Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I know the chief's on vacation, so that should work out perfect for our next meeting.
Okay. With that, we're at our second public comment. If you'd like to talk about anything, it's open. You have 4 minutes. Please state your name and come up to the podium, if you would. You're leaving, okay. We're here? Yes, Dave?
My name is Dave Carmona, Oscoda residents. First of all, Rick, thanks for taking care of Woodland Drive. Appreciate it very much. As far as the township and the airport goes, has anything been done about on-call costs for certain arrivals at the airport versus on-field standby for requirements for arrivals. I don't know if anything's been done with that, kind of lost track of it this summer. Last Tuesday, coming back down River Road, saw an ORV on the Explorer Trail between Orchard Park and the dam store. And that was my biggest concern, was that area. How are we gonna stop that? And then the last thing I have is I have a real concern about the lack of transparency or the appearance of a lack of due diligence concerning the police chief's bid. You're filling a position of public trust, requiring integrity, being bound by an oath of office. You are all bound by an oath of office to uphold the public trust and to be our representatives in matters concerning the citizens of this township. In this instance, there's been a great deal of inconsistency and lack of transparency. It appears the actions and lack of disclosure by the board regarding the process for hiring personnel is being applied inconsistently and capriciously. Instance one, the Planning and Zoning Board proposed hire who eventually turned down the position. We have a bid out for 2 officers for the police department that opened sometime in September and closes November 30th. And then the police chief position, it's unclear when the bid was put out for interest or how long the bid was actually open for applicants for consideration. The right to privacy is always a concern, but you can let us know certain information, for instance, regarding the chief police position. How many candidates were there? Was the minimum number of candidates you needed to have an adequate pool of viable candidates? How many were well qualified and moved on to interviews? When was the bid open and for how long? And where was it advertised? Thank you, Tammy, for some of that information today. These inconsistencies lead me to believe that there is no codified means of bidding positions for the township. You should have a process for bidding and filling positions which is consistent from position to position. It should have an interview process to include those who have supervisory knowledge and or related experience in the position being filled as part of the interviewing panel. I'd like to find questions answered to provide me with the location of the hiring process that you use as a township. I could not find it looking for it the past couple of days. How long are positions bid open before it closes to all candidates? Where the bids advertised as a minimum? Can selection be made prior to the completion of receiving all bids? Can the period be shortened, for instance, for a critical need? And how is that need identified as part of the process? Certainly having a police chief is a critical need. Is there a required wording included to indicate whether the township will provide moving expenses to broaden the pool of candidates? Is there a minimum pool of candidates which is acceptable to proceed to interviews and putting forward nominees for the position? If there's not an acceptable pool of candidates, what is the process for rebidding the position and providing incentives for potential candidates? For example, a signing bonus or moving expense. How does the township determine the qualifications of the interviewing panel regarding the position to be filled?
Your time's up.
Oh,
Thank you.
I will be sending this to you all as a letter.
Could I get your name again? I missed it at the beginning.
Dave Carmona.
Yes, Kevin.
Hello, Kathy Woosterbarth. I just want to give an update on the Oscoda area exposure assessment for PFAS testing and other contaminants. I just came from a meeting this evening, actually, where the Department of Health and Human Services gave our community members an update. At this point, there's over 500 people enrolled. 380 households, different households have enrolled. And they're soliciting participation in waves, is what they called it, waves. And so, in the last year, it started last year in September. They've had 3 previous waves, I think, and then they're going to have 2 more, and that will look like 2,500 mailings out to households in the community. So you'll see, people will be seeing some things in their mailboxes. So 2,500 this month, and then expected another 2,500 by the end of the year or at the beginning of next year. They are scheduling appointments out through next year. And if you have already participated and had your blood tested and, gone through the survey and all of that, you can expect to see some results sent to you in the mail. Those PFAS blood results are going to come to you first, according to the DHHS staff. They're sending them separately. So you'll be seeing those soon. It will come in a packet with, how to read them and how to talk to your provider about the results and all of that. And the participation at this point the majority of people are ages 50 and over. So they are really looking to see how they can increase that participation for those 12 years to 17 years of age, and then those from 18 to 49. They also asked the community to give them some feedback on where they'd like to maybe come present or have a table at any sort of festivals, which they've done in the past, in the last year here. But if anyone has any ideas on that, they can send them to me at nowactiongroup@gmail.com. Nowactiongroup, all one word, at gmail.com. Or they can call me if they need to. So find me on Facebook, message me, or whatever. But, speaking at groups like veterans groups or, things like that. If you have a group that you want to get this information to, please let us know. And I think that's it. Yeah, so the program is going very well. The state is very pleased, and so am I. So thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment? Yes, sir.
My name is Lawrence Hazelton, again. I just wanted to get my understanding clear on the drain issue, the 2023-22 resolution. So Mr. Strayer, is that his name, the drug commissioner?
Strayer, yes.
Yes. He was asking for approval to spend $140,000 or so to fix 1,800 feet of drain pipe.
That's the way I understood it, yes.
Okay, and that's really a separate issue from the 2023-22 resolution.
I think they're one and the same, and that's the issue that I had the way the resolution was written.
Oh, okay.
It was written kind of to me as an open-ended item, which really had no end cost.
Okay, good. And I may be repeating myself. I thought the resolution was to repair the whole system.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Sorry, my understanding. Okay, and then what wasn't discussed, I maybe heard this, that it was being proposed to put in perforated pipe as his fix at a low, and bury it down 2 feet. I guess the big picture was any move to lower the local water level in where he's working will end up creating more downhill flow. I mean, I think it just makes sense to everybody that would just think about it for a minute. And Mr. Strayer seemed to suggest that, no, that wasn't the case. So I suppose the engineering study will reveal that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hello again, Jeff Linderman, Oscoda resident. First of all, thank you for denying that first resolution. What was not said today, which I emailed you earlier today, but you probably didn't see it, the drainage system in Lakewood Shores has been collapsing for years. It didn't happen overnight. Looking back at some information that I obtained in 2022, September 22, the Drain Commissioner commissioned John Henry to fix a collapsed area. cost of $33,000. Prior to that, they had $85,000 in their account. December 27th, 2022, John Henry again for, I believe it's 10.5 or 16.5, 16.5, had some more repairs done, leaving a balance of $58,000. On 4/24/2023, transfer in from a drain assessment of 22 grand, leaving them a balance of 90,000 and change in that account. The drain commissioner was emailed a quote from John Henry on April 22nd, 2023. This problem has been out there for a long time. It was not addressed by the drain commissioner. I don't want to speak ill of that man. However, the problem has been here overnight. I feel sorry for the residents who have water in their crawls or water in their basements. However, this problem did not crop up overnight. And to address the prior gentleman speaking, in the quote I'm looking at from John Henry is $153,800 for that 1,800 feet. And to echo the previous statement, they want to use 12-inch dual wall perforated poly pipe. What does that mean? Currently, the drains are at grade level with the catch basin. Water fills in from the top into the catch basins out to Lake Huron. The quote I'm looking at, which I did not see the new quote, I FOIA'd it this morning, so I'm waiting on it. If you put in new drains with perforated pipe down, say 24 inches below grade, you are lowering the water table of Lakewood Shores by 2 feet. Perforated pipe has holes in it. Currently, it's solid pipe. So now, perforated pipe, you lower it 2 foot down, which increases more water flow to the east into Lake Huron. I applaud his efforts to run it back into Cedar Lake. We'll take all the water we can get. But he's talking about fixing the problem today, perforated pipe, using the same system, same grade, going to Huron. I would implore you to let Mr. Freeman look at this. I have plenty of information to show him. I've been looking at this for over 2 years. This board needs to take a hard look at what was said today for the truth. This did not crop up overnight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Kelly Brown, Oscoda resident. Bill, that was for you.
Thank you.
I do have a couple of questions. When is our next budget work session? I see Asabo is already working on it, and I know we have a lot of items that are co-paid with their organization. So I know we're approaching the end of September, and then these things have to be ratified and put together. So I just wanted to ask that question, if during board comment, either Ms. Klein or any of the board members, if you know, I would just appreciate knowing where we're at with that. I did want to ask, I've been asking for several meetings, probably going back 6 months, to have old business put on the agenda. It has been a formal request to put it on the agenda, but nobody's acknowledged it or told me why it can't be done. So I'd like to get a response, if possible, today. If not, if I could get it by the end of the week in writing, I would appreciate that from either the board members or the superintendent. I brought up 2 meetings ago about the owl. Thank you, Jeremy Spencer, Trustee Spencer, for bringing that into fruition, and our Superintendent Klein for using it and successfully getting the meetings posted. Do we have a protocol, or can we make one and put that on the agenda, or a work session of when that will be used? What are the requirements of when those videos will be uploaded? Is it going to be work sessions? Is it just going to be committees or subcommittees? I think it's just a great tool for people that can't make meetings, and we all know sometimes those meetings are during the day, sometimes they have kids, sports, obligations, driving restrictions. I think they're a great tool to create that transparency that Mr. Carmona was just talking about. I did want to ask, I had asked at the last meeting about the water loss and the TV interview that our supervisor had done. And I wanted to find out, you had mentioned, I appreciate the billing details, but you had mentioned that there is no liability for that water loss to the taxpayers. But we're paying for a certain amount in and billing for a certain amount, and the difference is what we consider our loss. That's the way I've understood it. You're shaking your head, so I would love for you to give me clarification. I didn't hear it at the board comments at the last meeting, so if you could touch on that today during board comments, I would appreciate that feedback. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up just echoes what Mr. Carmona just brought up about the transparency and also the consistency with our hiring process. We have had transition of positions. At the last meeting, a position was brought up and some details were relayed to the board that were not accurate. I don't think they were an omission. I just think, you know, when you're asked, sometimes you grab what you think you know. But I went back and looked in the paper, and your planning and zoning wasn't in any paper for the Oscoda Press in any of the 3-week edition that they had said it was. Additionally, some of the timelines weren't accurate. I just think there should be a standard protocol. Similar, I won't repeat all of it, what Mr. Carmona said, but we do need some consistency and we need some transparency. How many people apply? How many people are interviewed? How many interviews are done? Who's in on the interviews? What's the salary range? I did go out and find some job descriptions. I know we mentioned about the soil erosion at the last meeting and how that wasn't a big qualification from a training experience of our last planning and zoning. But Sheboygan County thinks it is because you have to be able to get that certification within 1 year or you could potentially lose your position. Also, I went out and looked at other states. Minnesota has one as well, same requirement. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no other hands. Board comment. Mr. Worcester.
I guess I'd like to state there's been a lot of, I've gotten some communications and also stopping people in the township out and about hiring process and processes within the township. What I'd like to explain is how we're set up, because I don't believe that everyone understands our structure. If it's government, sometimes it's a little difficult to understand. We have a superintendent that is effectively our CEO. We passed a resolution, 2021-27, that gives that superintendent a lot of powers that typically goes to the supervisor from an elected position. But because we hire a superintendent, this board has granted that position most of the powers that go to the supervisor. And two of the key ones are to be responsible to the township board for the efficient administration of all departments of township government. That means she is in charge. Everybody who works in this township effectively works for the superintendent. She's our CEO. We're her board of directors. Not one of us at this table can independently tell our superintendent what to do. We can only do that in a collective board decision. She's given a budget that we approve, and we expect her to manage the township on behalf of this board. Most of these positions are volunteer. They're part-time, the 4 trustees, the supervisor. There's only 2 full-time positions at this board, and that's the clerk and the treasurer. The other main point is she assumes, or the superintendent assumes, all duties and responsibilities as the personnel director of all township employees or delegates such duties to some other office or employees. She does have some department heads, the police chief being one major, the fire chief being another major. But I'm looking at this process, and she gave us the courtesy tonight because I think in the past, that's how things were run at the township, but there's no written law. And what I would like to see is effectively our superintendent be that CEO. She's responsible. we're going to hold her accountable for the way this township operates, and that includes all departments and all employees. That's this board's responsibility, as well as to ensure safety for the community. So frankly, I don't want to see the interview process at this board. I would like to see the superintendent have those interviews, make her choices, and it comes to the board, informs us that she's hired this position. The only time she would have to come back is if it creates a new position or if it's outside of budget. That's it. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Taser?
Surprisingly, tonight I don't have any comment.
Okay.
I know,
McGuire.
right?
I
Write
was
it
going to say
down.
something similar, but Steve pretty much covered it. We hired Tammy to do a job, and that's her process to do. I mean, I know I mentioned some comments, and I'd like to see the process change a little bit, and I know that those are talks that I don't want to have at a board meeting during our strategic planning or our budget workshops. I intended to bring some comments up and just for some helpful ideals for her. You know, whether she wants to utilize those or not, that's completely up to her. That's what we hire her for. So she's responsible.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Spencer?
I was asked about the Facebook question again, and so I wanted to bring that up real quick and say that after discussions and reading through the attorney's opinion and all of those fun things, there is no way to get around the risk to the township. And a specific example is if somebody posts something on the website or on the Facebook site and it gets taken down by Facebook, and then that information is FOIA'd, it puts the township at risk because we cannot get it back. And we cannot save it, and we cannot tell them not to delete it because it's their platform, not ours. And so to that end, that is why, since it is a risk to the township, as well as an additional cost for employees to maintain it, it's never going to be something that I personally will support. If the board wants to bring it up again, I'd be happy to discuss it in further detail. As far as I'm concerned, the issue is closed.
I think that's a very succinct conclusion and description of the problem with the township being involved with Facebook. So, thank you.
I know people will disagree, and I appreciate that. That's why we live in a free country, to encourage discord. But I'm not going to support it. So there you have it.
Okay. Mr. Sutton?
I would just echo Mr. Worcesterbarth and Ms. McGuire as far as our superintendent has duties. Much like Steve pointed out, the only other two people who have duties full-time at Township Hall are myself and Treasurer McGuire. And we're all outlined through resolutions and everything else on how we do that. And I know that's something for the three of us, is a lot of people don't understand. We don't direct each other. We have to work together every day. And each one of us has our own processes. So I think that's important to understand. And then I had a couple things that don't need to be on an update constantly, but just election commission meeting. Wanted to let everyone know that we completed Iosco County's approved multi-jurisdictional early voting plan for 2024. They had passed the early voting days to come before us. As each municipality looked at it, cost ensued to right about $150,000 per municipality. So all of us banded together, and we will have one early voting location because we had to buy additional equipment. We have to staff it, so we're all staffing one day of the early voting days, and then the equipment we're splitting, which saved each municipality, said roughly about $150,000. So our thought was Tawas Township took it on this year because all of our citizens tend to gravitate towards Walmart. It's about 10 minutes away from Walmart if you're down there and you'd like to utilize that for early voting for next year's elections. We just had a recent update for recycling. We received notice late last week that our grant proposal for Eagle Infrastructure Grant was accepted. It was to cover the cost of the 3 drop locations within Iosco County. We have extended our contract with RRS to assist with the implementation of the program. Next steps include host site agreements, determining final steps for the Tawas area, and an agreement with the Alpena Authority for processing. I talked with Ms. Carruthers, the county controller, and we're looking to have that. Everything's looking to wrap up and go for the beginning of 2025 based on us being able to unload the recycling locally to be repurposed to local companies. And then we did have our first Oscoda Townships Association meeting since January 2020. And we held that on September 20th at the East Tawas Community Center and just discussed getting the township entities back together for those meetings. And I believe we will have one coming up in October that'll be advertised when we get it out, and that's open to all the elected officials and anyone interested in government. But I found it particularly nice, especially for clerks, treasurers, things of that nature. We can talk to the board, but on elections, finance, everything else, it's nice to talk to other clerks, other treasurers. Getting that township association back up and running will be really nice for all the new clerks, treasurers, and all of us that are working on all these changes. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a couple of items. Future Chief Nolan, I think you heard the comment about the RVs on the bike path. That is the I will emphasize, non-motorized bike path that runs from Old Orchard Park down through Mill Street. There are to be no motorized vehicles on that path, so I will charge you with keeping an eye on that to make sure that we keep those off. I believe they're supposed to put some bollards in at some of the entrance points where these RVs are entering. I don't know if apparently haven't put those in yet.
I think those have all been now installed.
Those all have been installed.
But
So
they won't stop, they'll stop cars, they won't stop.
yeah. So the only way we can avoid that, especially on the phase 3 of the bike patch, which is crushed gravel, limestone, we need to keep those motorized vehicles off there. And the only way we can do that is they have to be ticketed or something to make sure they're aware they're not supposed to be on that pad. The other question that was addressed was about the water loss. I'll mention that again. We do have meters that meter the amount of water that comes into each location. All 6 of the municipalities that own HUSRA, of which we are by far the largest owner of HUSRA. There are meters in each community that meters how much water comes in, and then they calculate how much water is sold. That's how they come up with the loss figure. We are not billed. We do not receive a bill from HUSRA for that water. We simply pay what 51% of what HUSRA's budget is for the year. Now, if they weren't pumping as much water, obviously their budget might be somewhat smaller. But I can tell you it wouldn't be much smaller, because the budget for them is simply to maintain the treatment system down there and operate the pumps. So the electricity is a major component, treating the water, all of the functions of that system. We do not pay directly for the water that comes into Oscoda Township. So that's, I hope I've made that clear. We pay 51% of their total annual budget. That's it. The other thing is the hiring process. I've been on this board now for about 8 years, which means I've been on here under 4 different superintendents now, and starting with Mr. Stalker. When I first came on, was the superintendent here, and he was here for a number of years. The policy has always been, and as Mr. Wusterbarth indicated, the statute calls for certain duties to be performed by the supervisor of a township, with the exception that we can delegate those authorities. If we choose to hire a superintendent, we can by resolution pass that she takes over all of those responsibilities that are outlined by statute, by Michigan statute, which is what we have done. One of those is that she is the personnel director. And we have done this for every superintendent that we've ever hired. It's been the same process. They've had the same duties and responsibilities over the years that Ms. Klein has. And as I mentioned, one of those is the personnel director, which means that they are in charge of all of the employees, as Mr. Wisterbarth elegantly pointed out. And what I have witnessed, being on this board through 4 different superintendents, is that the superintendent is the one that conducts the interviews for township employees, since he's the one that the superintendent is responsible for the employees of the township. In the past, Mr. Stalker, when he interviewed employees, called Ms. Klein, who was his assistant at the time, to be part of the interview process and to go over the applications. We put out, whenever we have a position open, we advertise for that position, and we sit back and wait for applicants to apply. That's all we can do. And when we get applicants, Ms. Klein reviews them. If she feels that there's somebody that they would like to interview, I believe the last time she had her assistant, which is consistent with what previous superintendents have done, and the deputy clerk who does the payroll for the township, which makes sense to be involved in that interview process. We can only interview candidates that we have. And then when we have candidates, and Ms. Klein makes a recommendation to this board, and then they are, publicly eviscerated here in a public meeting, and they're watching that meeting at home, and then the next day they send an email saying, well, I've changed my mind, I guess I don't want that position. And then we have another applicant who was set for an interview, and he contacted the township and said, well, I've changed my mind, I watched the meeting, I don't think I want to be involved in what's going on there. So, just to talk about the policy that we have for hiring, that's it. We put out applications, Ms. Klein does the reviews of those. If she finds somebody that she feels is worthwhile, is satisfactory to that position, she can call them in for an interview. She'll have, like I said, her deputy, her assistant, and the clerk's deputy sit in on the interview, and then would make a recommendation to this board to hire that person. That's the process. That's the same process that's been here for, well, I've been on the board for 8 years. It's been that way, in my understanding. It's, Ms. McGuire, you've been here longer than me. I think it's been the same way for the last 20 years, where the superintendent.
Yep, the superintendent, and then he picks different department heads depending on the job position
Depending
that's
on the
open.
job.
And yeah, I mean, it's totally up to the superintendent.
Yes.
It's their job.
Yes, because they are the personnel director.
Right.
So that has to do with the hiring process. I think it's been fairly well established. I had something else I wanted to talk about. Now I can't remember what it was. Well, I guess that's it. I would make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out.